Hi, welcome to You, Me and Mediumship. I'll get the boring bit out of the way first. Please like, please subscribe, and please share my videos because it all helps me get my word out there, I guess. Not everybody's cup of tea, I understand that. And I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I literally just use this platform really to put across what I've learned over the years, some of the answers to questions that I get asked quite regularly, and it's just a platform for me to just put across what I've learned, I guess. And I've been quite fortunate, not only as a medium, but as a writer, as a spiritual writer. I've been very, and obviously talks. I've been very fortunate where sometimes I may well get carried away. The worst thing, I think people that know me well kind of understand that you don't bring up spiritual things when I'm around, because they'll normally land up nodding off after about the first hour, I think. So unfortunately, I'm one of those that once I start, I can't stop. But never mind, we all have our faults. But so I'd like really to touch on philosophy. It's a major part of what we do. It's a major part of our mediumship. And if you're going to be doing platform work in churches, it's something you need to work with and work on, because you will be asked, obviously, throughout a service within a church to give some philosophy, to give a talk before you actually do your demonstration. So it's something you need to understand in a sense. Obviously, if you're on the road doing your own public demonstrations and your one-to-ones and what have you, then it's you may well think it's not necessarily that important. I was talking to a good friend, a lady that I know, who is, I don't want to give too much away for her sake really, but she's very high up in one of the spiritual institutions, if you like. And I was talking to her a few days ago about what I'm doing at the moment, basically. And she was very pleased that the philosophy side of things was still something that I'm very interested in, that I love doing, because her words were, this is something that is fading out. It's very sad that this is happening, because obviously mediumship is great because we put a lot of people's minds at rest. There's closure. We help a lot of people with this. And like I've said a million times before, we light that spark. So it's very important what we do, but it's also just as important that we understand what makes spirit tick, if you like. What is that energy that we are communicating with? We get to know people, obviously, within this realm. We have friends, people we meet every day of the week, and we like to get to know them. We like to understand what makes them tick, really. And that's how we gel with one another. We know things about one another, what one another has as interests, as hobbies, things like that. We get to know them. So as mediums, it's important we get to know the energy that we are working with. And philosophy, in a way, helps with that, because we understand the atmospheres in which they actually exist. We get to understand that existence, and by doing so, it helps our work, because the more we get to know them, the more we understand them, obviously the better that line of communication is. The more confident they become with us, because they know that we are interested. We are certainly, well, more than interested. We are pupils, in a sense, learning all about their world. Obviously, they have experienced our world probably more than once, and we have experience also, many of us have experience of their world, although it's very deeply hidden within us. It is there. We do have experience of it. Okay, but I think it's important to make this world a better place, that we understand what links the way we live our life here, how that links with the existence there. So the better life we live here will help us greatly when we find ourselves in the next realm. So it's important that that understanding of their world is taught here so that we live a better life, so we are more prepared and we can move forward. We can progress as energy, as spiritual energy. We can progress once we pass. We don't want to be coming back here time and time again, obviously. That is the last thing that spirit want to happen. I've done a bit of writing on that, and I've tried to explain, that it's not something that they want us to do. They do not want us to keep having to return to experience this side of life. It's very important actually that we progress. Once we leave this particular, you can call it earth if you like, but for me it's just another stepping stone. It's like another realm. We need to be able to keep moving on. We do not want to keep coming back to experience things because we've made a mess of it once, and we need to come back and sort that out. And kind of like a karma, we have to keep coming back to learn. We need to learn these lessons, in other words, and we need to actively learn these lessons. So philosophy helps us with that by understanding the atmosphere in which they live. And it's important that by understanding the atmosphere that we live, we understand why we need to do a good job here for us to be able to stay within that atmosphere when we pass on. The reason it is so important that we get this right is simply because we are a kind of fuel, if you like we are food, if you like, for the source, for the energy that we sense running through everything. Everything that exists has a certain energy run through it. So obviously everything we see around us, living things we see around us, like animals, the plants, the trees, everything has this source of energy that runs through it. The whole place of existence has that source running through it. Okay, it is constant. It never falters. We see the seasons come and go. It does not falter. It does not change. And that is very much the same with the truth. Okay, well, I talk of how as human beings we try and alter that truth just to suit ourselves. And many things that have been written over the years have altered, have changed. And because we are doing that, we are losing track of exactly what that truth is. So it's important, like I said, the philosophy is constant. It is never changing. So a bad habit of ours, unfortunately, to change things to suit ourselves, which is doing us no good whatsoever. So anyway, back to where we were. Philosophy, okay, is when we allow spirit, in a sense, close enough to be able to influence us with our words. Okay, so we are tuning ourselves with energy, with spirit. As they draw close, we can put a question out there. We can ask questions. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And if we allow that mergence to happen between energies, we can get the answers from spirit. That's what happens when I write. I'll put that question out there. And sometimes I'll put that question out there maybe a day or two before I'll even sit with it. Okay, it's not forgotten. It's worked with. Energy will draw close when I have the time to sit and give me the answers that to the questions that I've actually put out there. Okay, and if I mentally, and this has happened, forget what that question was, if I've had a bad day, and I think, well, I did ask some questions, I may well forget, those answers will still come. Okay, as soon as the answer starts to come, I remember what the question was. It's a bit of a silly way of working, but I mean that's rare. But sometimes, like I said, if I have a bad day, then maybe I'm thinking, oh, I put a question out and I can't remember which one it is, because I could have quite a few in my mind and I can't remember the exact question I put out there. But I'm soon reminded once I sit in that power and allow that energy to flow. I soon remember. So, philosophy. I don't always think of something to talk about whilst if I'm on a platform. I don't do much platform work at all now. In fact, I hardly do any. So I'm just doing my own work at the moment. So time is very tight. But I wouldn't try and think of something to talk about, because I found that to be, for me, a bit of a brick wall. If I did something like that, I'm liable to stand there like a lemon and not talk about much whatsoever. I think it's important that before your demonstration, you are attuning yourself. If you've done that properly and you're sensing the energy there, your helpers are there, you feel relaxed, you're ready to work, then Spirit will give you something to talk about. It will come naturally. And they do not let you down. You are not going to stand there with nothing to say. Even something might just click in your mind as you're walking up to that platform. You may see something. Something will influence you so that you can give that small talk just before your demonstration. There will always be something come to mind, believe me. So don't over worry about that. It will happen. Okay, and just like I've said before, do not over worry about what sort of evening you're going to have. I hope this is going to go okay. And don't. Just be with an open mind. Approach that platform, stage, sitting, whatever it is you're doing, with an open mind, trusting, 100% trusting and knowing they are not going to let you down. Okay, they will not allow that to happen. As long as your intent is right, you're working with an open heart, you're nice and relaxed, you'll be fine. Absolutely fine. So, on the philosophy side of things, I came up with a bit of an idea. I'll probably kick myself for saying this, but if you like, I mean, I won't be able to do all of them because, like I said, time is so tight at the moment with Patreon and some of the teaching that I'm doing, and it's very tight. But if you like, if you think of something, and it mustn't be reading related. In other words, can you ask how Auntie Dorothy is or anything like that? I wanted it to be more on the philosophy side of things. So if you have a question that you feel you would like answered within the context of maybe your work, what would help you, or everyday life, maybe something in everyday life that you think you would like to know the spiritual aspect of that problem, what you think Spirit may say or may give as an answer to help you, then please just leave it in the comments. If it could be a worldly thing, it could be related to something going on in the world, anything you like, okay? Now, I will do my best to answer in a video. I will take one of those. I will put that question out there. I will leave it probably a day or two, and then I will sit with that for you. I will scribble down some notes as to what comes through to me, and I will give the answer to that question that you leave on YouTube. I've put all sorts of questions out there over the years, and many of them, and it just fascinates me. Even now, after all these years, it still fascinates me the depth in which some of these answers come, and to be honest, how simple the answers are. And when you read back to yourself the answers to some of the questions you put out there, I think the first thing that comes to mind 9 times out of 10 is, why didn't I think of that? And why didn't I see it in that way? And I think that proves a point that just how blinkered we get sometimes. It's absolutely fascinating. So please, on a philosophy-based question, okay, about spirit world, the realms, anything you like that, please don't just ask for a reading or ask how relative is, because that is a separate thing. That is a separate question from philosophy, if you like. So by all means, leave one, and I'll work with that for you. As and when I can, I will do something with it, and we'll see what we get back. So that'd be quite exciting, I think. Again, a pure experiment, really, because I've always only done my own questions. So it'd be nice to help you, really. You may well have a question there that you would love to put out to Spirit and ask, and I'm more than happy to sit and put that question out there for you and see what response we get back from Spirit. That would be great. So that's quite exciting. So for yourself, put your own questions out there when you sit. Okay, start to learn, because this is what it's all about, and that's why I go on about you're sitting in the power, and I go on about sorry, your best teachers being Spirit. So you will learn from Spirit an awful lot if you put the question out there, just sitting there in your silence. Yeah, it's great, but even though they're working with you, even when you're receiving, you think you're receiving absolutely nothing, Spirit are learning about you. They are picking up on your atmosphere. They are learning from you of how the best to merge those energies, how you react to certain situations, things you know, things you understand, because they will use them when they're actually passing messages over. I've given examples of that in the past. I'll say it again just in case there's new people here. A prime example of that would be when you went to see Grandma, and she always cooked, say, apple pies or something. Whenever you went round Grandma's, you picked up that scent of apple pies, and it's something that's stuck in your mind, it's stuck in your memory, it's something you've experienced, it's become part of you, okay? Because you could visit somebody else and you'd get that smell, and you would remember, yeah, I remember that when I used to go and visit Grandma. So if you're doing a reading for someone, you have that energy coming in, you sense that motherly feel about it. You're trying to think, is this mother? And you put the question out there, who is it I'm communicating with? Can you tell me? And then you get that strong smell of apple pies, or that's how it works sometimes. For some people, it works like that all the time. So you get that strong sense, that strong smell of those apple pies. You know immediately that you have a Grandma link. They are working with you. So your helpers are helping you to really underline who it is that is there. Okay, they are saying you have Grandma, in other words. So, that is just a very small example of why it's important they get to know you as much as you get to know them. So when you're sitting in the power, maybe before, or in your mind, if you've got a question, put that question out there and just wait and sense that answer coming through. Now, there are some guidance out there on getting to know your guides, how to get to know them. And one aspect of that, if you like, is to ask your guides obvious questions. Like today is Thursday, may well be Friday in other parts of the world, but today here in the UK, it's Thursday, and you ask your guide, what day is it today? Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? Okay, there is a difference between, this sounds in a way quite cheapening what we do, but it's not. It's a good exercise to do. you will start to sense the yeses and the nos, and you will learn from those yeses and nos the difference between your thought and that communication of spirit. And no, that is one question we always get. How do I know it's not me? How do I know that's coming from spirit? Okay, that exercise of asking your helpers, your guides, obvious questions with obvious answers, you will start to sense these answers in a different way to your own thought. So you will learn the difference between your thought and that of the communication from spirit. It's like if you're 21 years old, which obviously I am, no, only joking, but if you're 21 years old, you can ask spirit, how old am I? Okay, you will, straight away when I said that, and I've got an answer back, and that is obviously spirit. Now, the thing is as well, I'll just briefly interrupt that. Spirit do have sense of humour too. Okay, they were beings like us, they existed like us, they existed within the material body. They don't lose sense of humour, same as they don't always lose grumpiness sometimes, especially in early passing. Somebody who's passed, depending on the age of that soul, but somebody who's passed quite recently, sometimes you get a strong sense of their personality, and if they're a bit of a grumpy so-and-so, they'll come through. So their sense of humour, their grumpiness still exists for a period of time, but you pick that up. But the sense of humour I simply love that comes through from spirit sometimes, and I just heard that then. So a bit of sense of humour coming through from spirit there. I won't say what they said, but yeah, so ask obvious questions with obvious answers, sit with those. You will start to pick up the difference between thought and spirit communication. It's a good little practice to do. Okay, and sometimes you will get that sense of humour back, like I just did then. You will get that sense of humour come back if you ask a bit of a silly question. And it's so surprising sometimes just how beautiful that feels, even though it's said jokingly. There is a difference, okay, in a communication from spirit and your own thought. There is a vast difference. The softness of it, the energy of it, that thought hits you quite hard sometimes. As you pick up that communication from spirit, it can really is not, I can't say gut wrenching, you kind of feel it in your chest. Okay, so it's an energy that rides on that wave of that communication. It will hit you, it's not going to knock you off your feet, but it's kind of like an exciting feeling is one way of putting it, I guess, but it's more of an energy. You feel it inside of you. So riding on the answer to your question is both a gentleness, a warmth, and that energy. You will learn that. So communicate. I've said that a million times before. You are opening up a line of communication, not a one-way line of communication. Don't always sit there in total silence, expecting to hear everything there is to hear. If you don't put something out there for them to communicate to, then you may well hear nothing for a long time. So even if it's a question like, I'd like to know who my guide is, can you help me envision my guide? Can you talk to me? Can you give a name? Okay, that's another thing to talk about, is the name of your guides. Okay, they come up with all sorts of weird and wonderful names sometimes when we listen to some talks. Names are probably the bottom of the list for an energy. Okay, normally And a lot of people are going to disagree with me here. I totally respect that. That's absolutely fine. Unknowingly, I believe we name our guides ourselves. Now, a lot of people are going to be very upset at that, but we do that. And Spirit will work with that name because they know when you mention that name, when you call that name out whilst sat in the power, whilst working with Spirit, when you put that name out in thought, they know that you mean them. So you can call them Tom, Dick, Harry, whatever you like to call your guide, okay, as long as you are very respectful, then they will relate to that name and they will react to that name. So don't worry about sitting there listening for days on end for a name for your guide, okay? If you're comfortable, if you sense a certain name, you're comfortable with it, and you want to work with that name, work with it. Yes, it could well be right, it may well be correct, but a lot of the time we do tend to name our own guides because they will react to the name that you give them. Okay, they're not really bothered. It's the least of their worries if you get their name right or not. Their concern is that line of communication, what they have to say, what they have to teach. That is where their concern is, not with the name you give them. Okay? So please don't worry too much about that. So on your philosophy side, put questions out there and listen. Sense the answer. It may come in vision. Okay, not always comes in words. It doesn't always come in that clearly on in a sentence, if you like. Sometimes it will come in vision. It will come in symbols. The answers will come in all sorts of different ways, depending on your strongest point. Your strongest point may well be you're quite visionary. You see, you're quite clairvoyant, and you can see symbols quite clearly. Your answers may well come like that. If you're clairaudient, then obviously the sounds, you will hear the answers on that wave of energy, on that communication wave of energy. You will hear that whisper, you will sense those answers. So if you're clairsentient, you sense the correct answer. So there's all different ways these answers can come in, but please communicate. Okay, don't just sit waiting. They want to communicate with you. They want to work with you. And you will need that kind of line of communication whilst you're doing sittings, whilst you're doing demonstrations. You need that. If you're not quite clear on something that's been said, if a description of an energy is not that clear, you will need to be able to communicate. You will need to be able to ask for more clarity. I'm sorry, I haven't quite seen what you're trying to show me. Can you show me again? Can you draw a bit closer? Even the opposite. Sometimes you may well ask for an energy to step back because it is too close, and that does happen too. Nothing to be frightened of. Spirit will respect what you ask of them. So if you ask, please step that energy back, and sometimes that can come through if an energy is trying to give you, for argument's sake, how the energy passed because of a certain illness. You start to feel that. You start to sense that illness that energy passed with. Sometimes they can just get a little bit carried away, just coming a little bit too close. It's rare, but if it does happen, and especially in the early days where you haven't quite got maybe that control of what's going on, then you can ask energy, you can ask spirit, please just step back. You're too close, thank you. And obviously when they do that, you give thanks for that. It's all about respect too. So communicate, okay? Get answers to your questions. That's where that philosophy will flow through. That's when you'll be able to talk about things that you never even thought you knew, okay? And the fact is you probably didn't know that Well, you did, but it was very, very deep. So it's wonderful. Some of the answers they give will bring tears to your eyes, believe me, because it is wonderful. The philosophy is a wonderful thing. So work with that as well as your mediumship. Build that relationship, get to know them. They are getting to know you. So that is the link, really. Understanding. We need to understand what they experience there as much as they already understand what we experience here, obviously, because they've been through it. Okay? We have existed there, majority of us have existed there in some way, shape or form. We do have knowledge of it, but it's nice to be able to talk about it whilst in this form and be able to communicate it to people out there in your demonstrations. Obviously, a lot of people are very excited about coming to see a medium. They're excited that they may well get a message, and that's why they've come. That's why they've bought their ticket. That's why they've come on to church on a Sunday night. That's why they've done it, because they want to hear a message from auntie, grandma, or whatever. That's number one on their list. But it's important that we also share with them the aspect of spiritual life, of realms, of how they exist. That's just as important to us to do that. Okay, but like I said, they're there for their message, but we need to also communicate the way of life of spirit, if you like, because we will experience that, no doubt, at some point, but we can prepare for that by living good lives here, and we can prepare not to have to keep coming back to experience within this realm, but to be able to progress so that we can feed that source of energy. Okay, we feed it with love and warmth, and like we are the fuel to that source. It's important that we give that fuel of love and warmth back into the source in order for it to build, if you like, to create a more loving world, if you like, a kinder place. So anyway, that's enough of me waffling on. Please leave your comments or any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Please pop over to You, Me and Mediumship on Patreon if you want me to do some mentoring for it. Those places are filling now. I've got to try and restrict it to some point because obviously, like I said, time's very tight. And it's great to hear from people in other countries too. There is a big sort of time difference in places which I'm working with now with, the people in Australia and things like that. We can work something out, I'm sure. I know you're sort of a few hours ahead, but we will work something out. Again, many thanks for watching the video. I hope it helps you. It's what it's all about. It's the only reason I do it, really. I want to see things change, want things to be better in what we do. That's my passion, and I'm just sharing it with you. So have a great evening. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll speak to you again soon. So take care. Bye for now.